All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with someone who has been on the show before, but I was looking back to figure out when actually it was that you were last on like a proper episode of the podcast, and it was 2020, which
Oh wow.
it seems like that was both like a million years ago and last week, like at the same time. And so yeah, it's been quite a while since you were on the show, and there's obviously a lot to talk about. You got quite a bit of music that's come out sort of since then and upcoming. But the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself, give a bit of background about what it is you do as an artist, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. My name is Micah, and I have a band called The Secret Beach. And it's mostly me and some of my friends that play on the recordings and tour. And um, yeah, got a
Cool,
record coming out at the end of August.
awesome, and yeah, we'll definitely get
Yeah.
into the record because that's sort of the reason for doing this now. But with the Secret Beach, like I think last time you were on the show, again, not wanting to dwell on 2020, but um. The Secret Beach was the name you're using for the studio then. I don't think you were officially the Secret Beach as like a moniker for the project. So how long has that been sort of the name for the music you put out and the music you play?
It would have been pretty soon after that. It would have been pretty soon after that. I guess the first Secret Beach record came out in August of 2022.
Okay, okay.
So, yeah, it would have been maybe sometime in early 2022 that I sort
Okay.
of decided to merge the two,
Well, and I
studio
guess
and
the follow-up
project.
question to that is why? Because you'd already had at least two records under your own name, probably more. Two that I can think of offhand. You had all this time touring. You were established as yourself. Um, well ahead of this. So, what was the sort of reasoning behind? So, I mean, I know people still know that you are you in the Secret Beach, but yeah, what was the reason for switching to a more sort of vague name rather than it being obviously you?
Um, it was mostly that I wanted to involve other people. Like for example, on the new record, there's a song that somebody like my friend Dan wrote and sings a song on it.
Okay.
And that was I sort of wanted to look into the long-term vision of the project, and I also felt like when I was making records under my own name, I was sort of um still sort of searching for the like I was sort of maybe compromising is not the best word, but I would end up making these recordings that I wasn't fully, I guess I wasn't really like producing them. Like I was sort
Right.
of co-producing them with somebody else or with the help of somebody else or not in my own space or it felt like I was sort of figuring out how to get these ideas across well. And then
Yeah.
once I kind of had the studio, then I realized, oh, this is actually bigger than just me. This has the potential to be something that I can represent.
Okay.
And so and or that I could serve
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I
So
do. Yeah. Yeah.
it felt like it in some ways it feels weird because I will still tour alone. And I think that if I had it my way, like maybe I could still do both. But it's just from a public perspective easier to do one
Yeah.
and or yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
And also it's kind of cool because it feels more I wanted a little bit more freedom with the whole thing.
Well,
Freedom to be able to kind of, change things up
well, that's
at
what I was
any
going to ask too.
point.
Like, I get the impression the Secret Beach is sort of a collective. Like it's a name that's used for whoever you're working with, right? It's not like a set band. Is that sort of the idea that you can use this for whichever project you're involved with?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, and then with the studio too, it allows it to sort of cover that as well.
Yeah.
Um, I sort of had like this, I had some ideas, I had some visions of doing records that maybe I was a lot less involved in.
Okay.
as far as the performance goes. And I just sort of thought, you know, I don't know where this is gonna go, but if I if I get on it now that I have this studio, now that I have this creative space and sort of this control over the sound entirely, that is really a cool kind of thing to
Yeah.
be able to do.
Do you
Yeah.
think that there's a sound that I mean, because I know you've done a lot of production stuff for yourself and other people sort of over the years. You seem to be doing more and more of that kind of behind the scenes stuff. Um, is there a sound that the Secret Beach has? Like, is there a vibe that you sort of feel emanates from that studio that can be heard on various projects coming out of there?
Um, I think that there is because when I make my own music, I have certain desires for things to sound a certain way. And some other people um might ask me to record their music because they like that sound.
Sure.
But realistically, no. Realistically, I really would just like to record other people and make them sound the way that they would like to
Yeah,
sound.
of course, of course.
And that's totally fine with me. Like I don't I I don't want somebody to come in and think like um they're gonna sound like my records.
Yeah,
We would have a conversation and they might, like, I'm thinking of somebody like Sam Singer. You know Sam
yeah, yeah.
Singer.
I don't know him personally, but yeah, I've heard the record. Yeah, yeah.
So like Sam would come in and he might have some ideas that I wouldn't normally have, which is totally fine. But he's the type of person who is a fan of my music.
Okay.
And so he would sometimes say something like, I like how this song that you made sounded. I'm thinking of a very particular example. And so he said, how did you get that sound? And so I was able to tell him, and we were able to sort of, he used it as a reference point,
Right.
which is really helpful because I obviously know how to do that
Yeah,
particular
whatever that
thing.
sound is, you've done it before. Yeah, yeah. You have the experience.
But it is my goal to not be limited to
Sure.
like I use some pretty specific gear and microphone choices and stuff with my own music, but I have other stuff that I would happily use. Like I mean, I recently recorded an album for the band Mise en Scene, and mostly using recording techniques that I wouldn't,
Well, they have
use
a
on
very
my
different
own.
sound than your stuff. I mean, like there's, I guess there's that like interlake connection, but they do sound quite different. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was more of the vibe. I mean, and granted, they did want to venture a little bit more into the um raw sort of, I sort of have like this raw sort of approach to music where
Yeah.
too much perfection
I think you hear that
is
in the records too. You hear the kind of yeah, yeah, the genuineness of it. I think comes through, because it is that has that raw sound. Yeah.
exactly. That's another thing about the establishing of the secret beach is when I was making the self-titled records. I made two self-titled
Yeah.
records, and they didn't do that like I wanted them to. They were too perfected, not that they were perfect sounding records. Like I thought I
Yeah.
made them sound worse. Um, and I actually worked with somebody, well, a bunch of people, but one person in particular who did some mixing for the first Secret Beach record, and he gave me a lot of encouragement in saying things like he will often work with bands and he will encourage them to use their demos
Yeah.
on their records. Um, he like the biggest example was for him was that one of the first big records he worked on was Mellow Gold by Beck,
Okay.
which was his breakthrough record, and
Yeah,
it
that has a
was
demo vibe.
demos.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it has that vibe for sure.
So
Yeah.
it was just them. They had like uh, a basically a portable setup. And he said the whole record was not made in studios until it came to mixing.
Oh, cool.
That was the first time that it saw a studio. And until then, they were just doing it at people's houses, their living rooms, etc. And it was like they were sort of building this thing in a demo sort of way. So, anyways, people like that really encouraged me to lean into that.
Yeah,
And maybe I went too far with this for a Secret Beach record, but like that's fine. It's what I wanted to do with it, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so so there is that sound, but
Okay.
that's not necessarily the sound of the studio.
No, that's fair for sure, for sure. So, with this record you have coming out in August, right? The next Secret Beach album is out in August.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
on the 23rd of August.
23rd of August. I was reading, I think it was on your website, that this one there was a heavy Planet Waves influence on this record.
Yeah, a
So
part
what?
of it.
I haven't listened to. I have that album. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I mean, I remember it. What is it about Planet Waves that you were that influenced you? What I mean, what was it specifically about that record that sort of had an impact?
It was really just there's 6 songs on the Secret Beach record.
Right.
So that are in that sort of have that influence. When I first started recording the album, I had the idea to get a group of people into a studio and record, and they wouldn't know the songs. I wrote a bunch of new songs. I think I wrote about maybe 20 or 30 songs, and then sort of um got that down to about 15 songs, and we recorded like just for my own sort of choosing what was good. And this would have
Yeah.
been like the month before type of thing, or 2 months before. And that's kind of how Planet Waves was done, was nobody knew the material. They would just record a few songs every day. Um, so I was just reading about that album. I thought, oh, that's really cool. I'd like to try something like that as an experiment. We recorded 15 songs, and 6 of those songs are on this record. So it's about a third of the songs. It's not the whole thing, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
And then, like, do you hear that listening back to them? Like, do you think that, like, and I know sort of how these were put together and that inspired it, but when you listen back to the finished versions on the record, do you hear that Planet Wavesness sort of in the songs, or is it obscured enough in your sound and in what you do that it's not necessarily obvious?
On 2 of them, I
Okay,
do.
okay,
On 2 of them for sure. Like the song 22 and the song Have You Seen the News, which is coming out on July 11th. I don't know if interview will be
yeah, it
out
should
by
be,
then
yeah,
or
yeah.
not.
So people could check that
Um,
out when they hear this and go look for it. If it's not out yet, then
Yeah,
wait a few
22
days.
has been
Yeah.
out. This song is called 22 has been out for a little while. And those ones in particular, I would say would be that sort of style, because I think those are the only 2 that never got any overdubs.
Okay, okay,
Some of the other ones are still a live recording, but I might have added percussion or another guitar or
right.
some more vocals or something like that, that make them sound a little bit more produced or whatever you call it. But those 2 in particular are just live, 5 people,
Cool.
and that's it. So it kind of has that, those kind of have that sound, and everything in a way does, because I guess in the other sense is that I was recording everything on tape for this record, and
Yeah.
so for the most part, everything was recorded. Even if it was just me, it would be, play the song as a performance and then play the next instrument as a live performance. So it does have a bit of a playful feel. And then there's 1 or 2 others that are like made like with somebody else, like the song that I recorded with my friend Daniel Diamond, who wrote he wrote a song called Where Did It Go,
Okay.
which is already out. And we recorded it kind of similar in that, he sat at the drums and I played the guitar and we played together. And then he played the guitar and I played the bass and we played them together. And then
Cool.
he would sing and or maybe we'd sing together or I'd play the electric. Like we always did it where there was two of us doing an overdub at the same time, not just one person,
Yeah,
uh, until maybe it got to the end and there was only one last thing to do or something.
that's a cool way to do
Uh,
it.
it is. It's kind of the best way. I mean, that's my favorite way to make a song because usually you get it done that day, you get a mix and you're done. And I mean, maybe you get more than one done in a day, but
Right.
it just there's a lot of energy because you're bouncing off each other. Sometimes when there's too many people involved, it can also be really great because everything you listen back and it sounds done. But also, it's just everybody's got to eat,
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for
go to the
sure.
bathroom.
Yeah, that's gonna get
Yeah,
distracting. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, and
It's
then
fun too, right? But yeah,
oh yeah, yeah,
it's
but for
just
sure, yeah.
yeah.
This record is very. I mean, from what I understand and from the title and everything, it's very Winnipeg centric. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, you got the Simpsons reference in the title. Um, do you? I'm trying to think back to your other stuff, and I mean, I have the previous Secret Beach record. I have one of your other ones. Um, has that sort of place in your songs been as important in the past? I think you do have some songs that are definitely stories about things that happened and real life kind of vignettes and stuff. But has that sort of like very specific location part of it been part of what you've done in the past?
No. Not that I was aware of, I guess. So I think that it has been, but I wasn't aware of it at all.
Okay.
Maybe because I just sort of step outside and I've actually it was because in the like as I was making this record, I was living in Saskatchewan a lot more, which is like that's where my girlfriend lives
Okay.
and
Okay.
it's where I live now for the most part. We're usually here or on tour or whatever.
Right.
Um, and I guess sort of as I was making the record, I realized, oh, I actually have this like really strong tie to Manitoba almost to the degree where I end up I that's like sort of what's in my vision as I'm writing. And like there's some themes in the lyrics of this album, but it's mostly like the feeling. Like it's like every song that when I listen to it has a place in Manitoba for me.
Okay.
In my like, there's maybe like a location associated or many locations associated or feelings or situations associated with Manitoba. Uh, but it's kind of funny because I've made this record that I've like it is sort of Manitoba themed, or at least it's the first record that I'm admitting that I am a Manitoba um based artist
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like like my art is like kind of has its roots in Manitoba and as I'm making a new record now, I think it's the same. So it's like I think it's not just the one record. I'm just sort of admitting it on the
Yeah.
one record,
When you put this record together, I mean, like you said, you had all those songs you kind of whittled down to the ones you were going to use on the album. Were you deliberately sort of making songs that had that connection, or did you just realize sort of at one point you have all these songs that are very clearly Manitoba uh, themed or related or
Yeah,
adjacent?
it was actually like after it was done and mixed and everything. It was probably in the time that I was mixing it,
Okay.
um that I realized that. And yeah, it was that's the thing is that I guess I sort of realized it about all my music. But that I really realized this one really made me realize it. It really like made me realize that no matter where I go um or what I'm making, there will always be that sort of connection point. And it's a unique thing,
Yeah.
because there's only so many people that have that. I mean, it's not a big place. It's a physically big place, but it's not not that many people. And so I think it's good to embrace that.
Yeah.
in your art. So once I realized, then I sort of was thinking about how I could accentuate that and make it not just that I would know that, but that somebody who's from Manitoba would see the record and or would hear the record and be given a clue. That's why I gave it that title, was because
Yeah.
it's almost like if you know enough about Manitoba to know that reference,
Yeah.
then you will be able to get in a little bit deeper into these songs in that way, or not, or just the same as I really appreciate when an artist has a strong connection or identity
Yeah.
with their home. I really like that. It
So do I.
brings me there, like I'd like to be able to feel like I'm in the home of that artist.
I think when someone
It's
does that right, even if you've never been there and never will go there, you develop an idea in your head as a listener of what that place is like.
yeah,
Because the best example for that, I mean, it's very different than what you do, obviously, but is Wu Tang. I've never been to Staten Island. I don't think I'm ever going to get to Staten Island. I listened to Wu Tang for decades now. I have an idea in my head of what it's like based on all of these things, and like, it maybe it isn't, but they've very well crafted this idea of what their community is like, and it's really specific.
it's true. Yeah, it's true. And it's in the sound too.
Yeah,
It's not just,
not
I
just
mean,
the
it's
lyrics.
obviously it's yeah, like the lyrics help, but
Yeah,
there's a sound about it. And you can't help it. I mean, that's why I try when I'm making my records to get some ambient sounds, like, back the mics off a little bit and maybe
yeah,
get a little bit of outside noise and involve other people that are from that area or whatever it might be, whatever you're trying to, get down, because there's a sound, right?
for sure.
Even like it could be weird stuff. Like, I'm thinking about there's a guitar that I've got here, that I was lending to Liam Duncan for a long time, and it's all over his new record.
Oh, cool.
But now it's here again. And other people probably like that's part of a sound that's kind of local,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's actually physical instruments that have made their way onto different people, onto many people's records, and like that will only ever sound like those instruments, right?
yeah. You can't remake that even if you have all the technology in the world because it's that specific.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. It's really cool. It's really cool.
I like that. Yeah, yeah. Well, when I saw the title, I was pumped because like I always like this, just like you're saying. I mean, when someone illustrates a place that it gives you a picture of it. I mean, I'm from Manitoba. I've lived here my whole life. I know what Manitoba is. I get the references, but it's still cool to see that even as someone from here to see that that's being kind of highlighted because yeah, it's always good to give us some attention over here.
Right. Somebody just asked me, they were like, did you have to like get any sort of like clearance for that, or pay any
Oh
sort
yeah,
of
the
royalties
Simpsons reference. Yeah, yeah,
for the Simpsons reference? And I was like, you know what? Like if they wanted to sue me, and like they I think that there's a good argument that they decided to make fun of
yeah,
our home,
yeah.
and the least that they could do is let us use the title that they gave us.
I don't know if they're aware of how important that reference became here too, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
probably.
such a huge cultural thing, which is really weird. But I mean, everyone knows it. Everyone knows it here.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe I think maybe my next record will be called Chicken Car Wash Laundromat Pizza or
That's a good
something
one. Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Yeah, that's one that only people from Winnipeg would get because it's such a specific reference. But yeah, that's an awesome one.
Yeah, exactly.
So the record is coming out in August. I mean, the good thing about this being a podcast, people could hear it. They could hear it the day it comes out, or they could hear it a year from now. At which point it's already out. You probably have new stuff happening. What's the best way to find your music, just sort of in general at this point?
I mean, yeah, just look up The Secret Beach or The Secret Beach music. It's it's there, it's there now. It's on social media and streaming services of all sorts, and
Cool. And
yeah.
then you have physical copies as well. What Bandcamp, your website? What's the best way to get that stuff?
Yeah, I currently am running a Shopify store, and I think I will continue to. It's a little expensive, but I think at the end of the day, I think it actually is about the same.
Okay.
So fingers crossed, somebody's listening to this in 5 years. I still am running
Yeah,
my Shopify
yeah,
store. If not, yeah, it'll just be on my website. It's like thesecretbeach.ca. That's where you can find everything,
cool. Eh,
shows and yeah.
well, and I was going to ask about shows too. Like, are you doing anything? Do you have a tour or anything planned to sort of promote this record?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got a show on August 1st in Winnipeg,
Okay,
and that'll be like the album release show. It's like, obviously it's 3 weeks before the album comes out, but I'll have physical records there. I'm doing a little Western Canadian tour. Uh, it's like July 28th or 27th or something to August 4th.
okay,
And it's just Manitoba and Saskatchewan and Alberta. Um, so that'll be a sort of an early, record release party tour thing.
cool.
And then I'm doing a big tour that goes basically from Winnipeg to from Vancouver and then south to California to San Diego and then back up kind of thing. So
Cool. Well,
yeah.
I was gonna ask you about that too, because I mean, I know I see a lot of, and I have over the years seen a lot of stuff on your social media and everything. You are playing a lot of shows, kind of in the States, sort of West Coast, places like that. How is your? I mean, especially with this one, maybe it'll be different because of the overt Manitobanness of the whole thing. But like, does your identity as a Manitoban, does that relate at all over there? Like, or do they just think you're local? Like, I mean, do you have something about what you do that makes you stand out as like you're not from here? Like, or do you think your music is sort of pliable enough? I guess that people can put their own. Maybe not so much with this one because again, it's more specific.
Well, that's it. I guess the thing is that you wouldn't necessarily know that about the Manitoba reference with the
Yeah,
new
of course, right?
record.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but unless you're a big Simpsons fan, of course. But I guess I guess the thing is, I don't know. That's hard to say. Like I think that people don't know. I think like often people think that I'm local or that I'm from LA or something and
Yeah,
I'm touring to Seattle or whatever. Um, a couple of times people thought it was a bit that I was talking about like
it was a
how
character.
much how much I love Manitoba on stage, and they thought it was like a joke, like I was just had some weird bit that I was
Yeah,
saying that night. So it goes all ways, but I think for the most part, people just like the music a lot there, and it seems like they really dig the idea of of Canadian artist. Most of the time they don't you don't you don't most of the time they don't know people that also are from Manitoba.
of course, yeah,
Usually I'm
yeah.
the only one. So yeah.
Yes, you're a
Yeah.
pioneer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.